Commander Hana stood on the bridge of her warship, watching the stars explode in the distance. Each flash of light meant another coalition ship had died. Each silent burst meant hundreds of her people were gone. The Ravagers were winning, and there was nothing she could do about it. "Commander, we've lost the 7th Fleet," her communications officer reported. His voice shook with fear. Hana closed her eyes. The 7th Fleet had 300 ships, all gone in less than an hour. The Ravagers moved like a dark wave across space, consuming everything in their path. They were insects, but insects the size of buildings. They worked together like a single mind, attacking in patterns no one could predict. "Pull all remaining ships back to the Kefra Nebula," Hana ordered. "We make our stand there." Captain Tay, her old mentor, walked up beside her. His gray skin showed his age, and his forearms hung tired at his sides. "This is hopeless, Hana. We should retreat to the core worlds and let them take everything between here and there." Hana shook her head. "No, we fight here." Tay sighed. "You've been reading those old myths again, haven't you? Still hoping for magical saviors?" Hana didn't answer. Yes, she had been reading the ancient texts. Stories about a species called humans. The myth said they were the first intelligent species, the ones who built the first cities among the stars. Then they vanished. Some stories said they destroyed themselves. Others said they ascended to another plane of existence. Most people thought they never existed at all. Hana had found something interesting. In her personal studies, she discovered that several ancient artifacts had strange markings. These markings appeared in multiple locations across the galaxy, always in places where the myths mentioned human presence. And all the artifacts emitted the same unusual energy pattern. The battle began badly. Ravager ships poured into the nebula like angry bees from a hive. They had no elegant movements, no careful tactics. They simply swarmed and destroyed. Coalition ships fired their weapons, creating brilliant lights in the darkness, but for every Ravager they killed, 10 more appeared. Shields at 40%. Someone shouted. "Hull breach on deck 7. Another voice called. Hana gripped her command chair. They were going to lose. She knew it. Tay knew it. Everyone knew it. Then her scanner officer said something strange. "Commander, I'm detecting that energy signature. The one from your research." Hana's heart jumped. "Where?" "Inside the nebula. About 3,000 kilometers from our position. It's an object, very small, but it's broadcasting." "Broadcasting what?" "I don't know. It's not any language in our database." Hana made a decision that would change everything. "Take us to that object. Full speed." "Commander, we're in the middle of a battle." Tay protested. "Trust me," Hana said. Her ship broke formation and dove deeper into the nebula. Other ships tried to cover their escape, buying them precious minutes. When they reached the coordinates, the sensors showed a small metallic sphere floating in space. It was old, very old. The metal had patterns that matched the ancient artifacts exactly. "Bring it aboard," Hana ordered. They pulled the sphere into the cargo bay. Hana went down herself, wearing a protective suit. The sphere was beautiful, covered in symbols that seemed to shift and change when she looked at them. In the center was a single panel with what looked like a handprint. She knew this was crazy. She knew it could be a weapon or a trap. But something inside her said to try. Hana placed her hand on the panel. The sphere exploded with light. Not a destructive explosion, but a wave of pure energy that didn't hurt anything. The symbols glowed bright blue and began to spin. Then a voice spoke. It came from everywhere and nowhere. "Beacon activated. Distress signal received. Calculating response time. Standby." The voice spoke in perfect coalition standard language, but with an accent no one had heard in 10,000 years. What have you done? Tay had followed her to the cargo bay. I called for help, Hana said. From who? There's no one out there. The sphere spoke again. Signal sent to Sector 0. Response time, 4 hours. Recommendation: survive until arrival. Then it went dark. Hana and Tay returned to the bridge. The battle was going even worse. Half their fleet was gone. But Hana ordered them to fight defensively, to stay alive, to wait. Wait for what? Tay demanded. You'll see, Hana said, though she wasn't sure herself. 3 hours and 57 minutes later, the sensors went crazy. Something's coming out of jump space, the scanner officer said. But it's not using any jump technology I recognize. It's just appearing. A single ship emerged from nothing. It was small compared to Coalition battleships, sleek and gray. Its design was smooth and purposeful, like a knife cutting through water. It didn't look like any ship in the known galaxy. They're hailing us, communication said, her voice full of shock. Put them through. A face appeared on the screen. It had 2 eyes, 1 nose, 1 mouth, 2 arms, 2 legs, smooth skin, hair on its head. It looked almost like a dozen species Hana knew, but also like none of them. This is Lieutenant J of the human reconnaissance ship Wanderer, the face said. We received your distress call. What seems to be the problem? The bridge went silent. Absolutely silent. Humans were real. And they had come. For 10 seconds, nobody on Hana's bridge moved. They all stared at the face on the screen. A human. An actual human. The myths were true. Commander Hana, are you receiving? Lieutenant J asked. He looked concerned. Is your communication system damaged? Hana found her voice. No, I'm sorry. We're just surprised. We didn't think humans were real. Jay smiled, but there was sadness in it. We get that a lot. We've been gone a long time. Now, about that problem? The Ravagers, Hana said, pulling herself together. They're a swarm species. They've destroyed half our fleet, and they're consuming entire star systems. Show me the tactical data, Jay said. Hana sent everything. Battle reports, scanner readings, tactical analyses from the last 3 months of fighting. Jay's eyes moved rapidly, reading faster than should be possible. Interesting, he said. Very interesting. Hold your position, Commander. Help is coming. How much help? Tay interrupted. We need at least 1,000 ships to match what the Ravagers have. Jay looked at Tay calmly. We're sending 47. The bridge erupted in protests. 47 ships? That was nothing. That was an insult. Hana raised her hand for silence. Lieutenant J, I don't mean to be rude, but 47 ships won't make a difference. Trust me, Commander. They will. In the meantime, I'd like to dock with your ship. My engineer Minji and I should meet you face to face. Hana agreed, though many of her officers looked unhappy about it. 20 minutes later, a small shuttle left the human ship and landed in Hana's docking bay. When the airlock opened, 2 humans stepped out. Jay was tall and lean, wearing a gray uniform. Minji was shorter with intelligent eyes, carrying a case of equipment. They both moved with a confidence that made Hana nervous. They weren't arrogant, just completely sure of themselves. Thank you for allowing us aboard, Jay said, extending his hand. Hana looked at the hand, unsure what to do. Jay smiled and explained, It's a greeting. We shake hands. Hana reached out with one of her 3-fingered hands. Jay's grip was firm but not aggressive. His skin was warm. So, Tay said bluntly, where have you humans been for 10,000 years? Jay and Minji exchanged looks. That's a long story, Jay said. The short version is that we nearly destroyed ourselves. Wars, weapons, stupidity. We were young and dangerous. So our leaders made a choice. We quarantined ourselves in a region of space we made impossible to enter. We spent 10,000 years learning, growing, making sure we'd never be that stupid again. And you just stayed hidden? Hannah asked. While the rest of us built the coalition? Yes, Minji said quietly. It wasn't easy. Some humans wanted to come out, to explore, to meet others. But we made a vow. We would never interfere unless we were directly asked. That beacon was the call we've been waiting for. Alarms suddenly blared. Ravagers incoming. The tactical officer shouted. Everyone rushed to the bridge. The sensors showed a new wave of Ravager ships, thousands of them moving toward the coalition fleet. This is going to be bad. Tay muttered. Jay studied the tactical display with intense focus. Minji, are you seeing what I'm seeing? Yes, she said, typing rapidly on a portable device. They're using a networked attack pattern. There's coordination here. Everyone thinks the Ravagers are mindless, Hannah said. Just hungry insects. They're not mindless, Jay said. Look at these movement patterns. There's intelligence directing them. Distributed intelligence, like a brain spread across thousands of bodies. The battle began. Coalition ships fired everything they had, but the Ravagers kept coming. They attacked in waves, coordinated strikes that hit weak points in the coalition formation. Hannah's ship shook as a Ravager cruiser rammed into their shields. Sparks flew from damaged consoles. The lights flickered. Through it all, Jay and Minji watched and recorded. They didn't look scared. They looked focused, like scientists studying an interesting problem. How can you be so calm? Hannah demanded. Because we're learning how they think, Jay said. And once we know how they think, we can beat them. A new alert sounded. This time, it was different. The sensor officer looked up with wide eyes. Multiple jump signatures. Unknown vessels entering the system. On the main screen, space began to tear open. Not the normal blue flash of coalition jump drives, but something else. Reality seemed to fold and unfold. Ships emerged from these folds, ships like Jay's but much larger. 47 ships appeared in perfect formation. They were beautiful in a deadly way, all smooth lines and hidden weapons. Each one broadcast the same identification. Human Expeditionary Fleet. A new face appeared on the screen. This human was older, with gray in his hair and eyes that had seen too much. This is Admiral Soong of the Human Defense Force. We received a distress call. What's the situation? Hannah explained quickly. Soong listened without interrupting, his face expressionless. When she finished, Soong nodded. Understood. We need 12 hours to analyze the data and form a battle plan. Can you hold that long? We'll try, Hannah said. Don't try. Do it. We didn't come all this way to watch you die. Soong looked directly at her. Humans keep their promises, Commander. You called. We came. Now we fight together. The transmission ended. The human fleet spread out, forming a protective barrier around the damaged coalition ships. When the Ravagers attacked again, they met something they had never encountered before. Human weapons. The Ravagers died in ways Hannah had never seen. Precise strikes that took out multiple enemies with single shots. Missiles that seemed to think for themselves. Energy weapons that cut through Ravager armor like it was paper. But it was the way the humans fought that amazed her most. They didn't just shoot. They moved like dancers, like each ship knew exactly where the others would be. They turned the Ravagers' own tactics against them, using the swarm's coordination as a weakness dot in 2 hours. The human fleet had destroyed more Ravagers than the coalition had killed in 2 months. Hannah watched in awe. The myths hadn't been exaggerations. They had been warnings. Admiral Soong's flagship was different inside than coalition ships. Everything was efficient, clean, built for purpose rather than comfort. Hannah walked through the corridors with Jay. marveling at how quiet everything was. Coalition ships hummed and buzzed with activity. Human ships seemed to whisper. They entered the war room where Sung stood over a massive holographic display. Around him were other human officers, all studying the data with fierce concentration. One of them, a woman in black combat armor, looked up when they entered. "Captain Day," Sung said. "This is Commander Hannah of the Coalition." "Commander, Captain Day leads our special forces." Day nodded. She had scars on her face and hands that suggested she had seen real combat. Up-close combat. The kind where you could see your enemy's eyes. "We've completed our analysis," Sung said without preamble. "The Ravagers aren't what you think they are." "What do you mean?" Hana asked. Minji stepped forward, manipulating the holographic display. "Watch this." We tracked Ravager movements over the last month. The display showed the Ravager swarms moving through space. "See these patterns? They look random, but they're not. There's a structure." She highlighted certain ships in red. "These are command nodes. The Ravagers are networked like a giant brain. Most of them are just drones, following orders. But these nodes? They think. They plan. They direct the swarm." Hannah felt stupid. "We never saw it. We thought they were all the same." "You were fighting defensively," Sung said. "Protecting territory, trying to save civilians. That's honorable. But it made you predictable. The Ravagers exploited that. What do we do differently?" Tay asked. He had come aboard with Hannah, still skeptical but willing to listen. "We attacked the nodes," Day said simply. "Cut off the brain, the body dies." "But the nodes are in the center of their formations," Hannah protested. "We'd have to go through thousands of drones to reach them." Day smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. "That's why you send people who specialize in going through things." 6 hours later, Hannah watched something she would never forget. The human fleet had located a Ravager command node, a massive ship protected by hundreds of smaller vessels. The Coalition would have attacked from range, trying to break through with firepower. The humans did something different. They sent boarding teams. Day's ship, a sleek black vessel designed for close combat, punched through the Ravager formation like a bullet. Other ships followed, moving so fast the Ravagers couldn't target them effectively. They latched onto the command node's hull like parasites. "They're insane," Tay whispered. Through the video feeds, Hannah watched Day's team breach the hull. They moved through the Ravager ship carrying weapons that seemed too large for humans to carry. But they carried them easily, running through corridors filled with hostile aliens. The Ravagers inside were huge, each one the size of a Coalition soldier. They had claws, mandibles, armor, plating. They screamed and charged, thought the humans killed them all. Hannah had never seen anything like it. The humans fought with a brutality that shocked her. They used guns, blades, even their own bodies as weapons. When one human's gun jammed, he simply grabbed a Ravager and broke its neck with his bare hands. "How are they so strong?" Hannah asked. "Earth has high gravity," Jay explained. "And humans evolved as persistence hunters. We're not the fastest or strongest species in the galaxy. But we don't stop. We don't give up. And we've been fighting each other for thousands of years. We know every way there is to kill." On screen, Day reached the command node's control center. She planted explosives while her team held the entrance. Ravagers poured in like a flood, but the humans didn't retreat. They formed a wall of armor and weapons, and nothing got through. "Charge is set," Day reported calmly. "Extracting now." The team ran back through the ship, fighting every step of the way. 2 humans were injured. None died. They reached their shuttle and launched just as the explosives detonated. The command node exploded from inside. And suddenly, all around it, thousands of Ravager drones simply stopped moving. They drifted in space, lifeless. "One node down," Sim said. 47 to go. But something else was happening too. In another part of the system, a different human team was demonstrating a different kind of superiority. Pilot Yuna led a squadron of human fighters against a Ravager patrol group. Coalition fighters had tried the same thing before and lost badly. The Ravagers were fast and vicious in close combat, but Yuna was faster. Hana watched the tactical display in disbelief. Yuna's fighter moved like it was alive, dodging enemy fire by centimeters, threading through impossible spaces. She destroyed 3 Ravagers in 10 seconds, then looped back and destroyed 3 more. Her squadron followed her lead, moving in perfect coordination. They flew in ways that should have killed them, pulling maneuvers that would turn a coalition pilot's brain to mush from the acceleration forces. How did they survive those forces? Tay asked. Training, Jay said. And genetics. Humans have been selected for this over thousands of years. The ones who couldn't handle it didn't become pilots. The squadron destroyed the entire Ravager patrol without losing a single fighter. Yuna's voice came over the calm and professional. Target eliminated. Moving to next objective. Over the next week, the pattern repeated. Human Special Forces teams took out node after node. Human fighter squadrons cleared Ravager patrols. Human ships demonstrated tactics the Coalition had never imagined. The Ravagers started to lose, but Hannah noticed something else too. She saw how the other Coalition species looked at the humans. There was gratitude, yes, relief, but also fear. She understood why. The humans were their saviors. But they were also a reminder of something terrible. In the ancient myths, before humans disappeared, there were stories of wars. Wars where humans fought other species. Wars where the humans always won. The myth said humans were dangerous. The myth said humans were survivors who would do anything to win. Watching Day's team tear through Ravagers like they were nothing. Watching Yuna fly like she was born in space. Hana realized the truth. The myths were right. Humans hadn't changed. They had just been waiting, and now they were back. The war was changing. Slowly, carefully, the humans were teaching the Coalition how to fight back. Specialist Quan arrived 3 weeks after the first human ships. He was different from the soldiers. Quieter, thoughtful, with kind eyes that seemed to understand things without being told. His job was to help Coalition forces learn human tactics. Hannah sat in on his first training session. 200 Coalition officers from a dozen different species filled the briefing room. Fighting is about more than weapons, Quan said. It's about thinking. The Ravagers are predictable because they follow patterns. You've been predictable too, following the same defensive strategies. We're going to teach you to be unpredictable. He showed them recordings of human battles. Not just the victories, but the mistakes too. He explained how humans adapted, changed tactics mid-battle, took risks that seemed crazy but worked. Your military doctrine says to minimize casualties, Quan said. That's admirable. But sometimes, to save millions, you have to risk hundreds. That's the hardest lesson to learn. A Valorian commander stood up, angry. You're saying we should sacrifice our people? I'm saying you should trust them, Quan replied calmly. Trust them to do hard things. Trust them to make sacrifices for victory. Your people are brave. Let them be brave. It was a hard lesson. The Coalition had always valued caution, protection, safety. The humans valued victory, no matter the cost. But it worked. Hana led the first joint operation herself. A mixed force of Coalition and human ships attacked the Ravager staging area. Following human tactics, they didn't go in carefully. They went in fast and aggressive, hitting the Ravagers before they could organize. It was terrifying. Hana's ship took damage that would have made her retreat before, but she remembered Quan's words. Trust your people. Keep going. They destroyed the staging area and escaped with acceptable losses. Acceptable. That was the human word. Not perfect. Not zero. Acceptable. Afterward, Hana found herself in the medical bay. Dr. Nari, the human medic attached to her ship, was treating wounded Coalition soldiers with tools and medicines the Coalition had never seen. This one had a ruptured blood vessel, Nari explained, working on a Valorian pilot. Your medical technology would have taken 3 days to repair it. With our nanobots, he'll be back on duty in 6 hours. Why are you so much more advanced? Hannah asked. Nari looked up, her hands still working. 10,000 years of isolation. We had nothing to do but learn and improve. We made mistakes, terrible ones, but we learned from them. Every human alive today benefits from 10,000 years of accumulated knowledge. She finished with the pilot and moved to the next patient. We also had to get good at fixing people. During our isolation, we fought among ourselves a lot. Competitions, sports, training exercises. Humans are naturally competitive. We needed to get very good at putting each other back together. That night, a Ravager attack almost killed Hana. A boarding party of Ravagers breached her ship. They cut through her security teams like they weren't there. Hannah found herself trapped in a corridor with 3 of the creatures bearing down on her. She raised her weapon, knowing it wouldn't be enough. Then Nari appeared. The small human doctor held a medical laser in one hand and a surgical blade in the other. She stepped between Hana and the Ravagers. Get behind me, Nari said quietly. You're a doctor, not a soldier. I'm a human, Nari replied. We're all soldiers when we need to be. She fought the Ravagers with precise, economical movements. The medical laser burned through armor. The surgical blade found gaps in their exoskeletons. In 30 seconds, all 3 Ravagers were dead. Nari helped Hana up. Are you hurt? No. You saved my life. Nari smiled tiredly. That's what doctors do. But Hana understood something important in that moment. Every human, no matter their job, was capable of violence. They were all trained, all ready, all willing to fight. It wasn't that they loved war. They had just accepted it as part of existence. The coalition of human and coalition forces won battle after battle. The Ravagers were being pushed back. But then something changed. The Ravagers started adapting. They began targeting human ships specifically, swarming them with overwhelming numbers. They changed their tactics to counter human strategies. And they became more aggressive, more desperate. Quan brought disturbing news to a strategy meeting. We analyzed the Ravagers' new behavior patterns. They're not just adapting. They're recognizing us. They're afraid of us. That's good, isn't it? Tay asked. Maybe, Kai said. But fear makes enemies unpredictable. And there's something else. He pulled up ancient files, data from human archives. We found references in our old records. Before we went into isolation, there was something called the Silence Wars. We fought against species that don't exist anymore. These records are classified, but I got permission to share them. The hologram showed ships that looked similar to Ravagers. Not identical, but close enough. We think the Ravagers might be connected to those ancient enemies, Quan continued. Or they might be weapons those enemies created. Either way, this isn't a random attack. The Ravagers were sent here for a purpose. Hannah felt cold. What purpose? We don't know yet. But we need to find out before they complete it. Admiral Soong called a war council. All the senior coalition and human officers gathered on his flagship. The room was tense. We've been winning tactical battles, Soong said. But we're losing the strategic war. The Ravagers keep coming. Every time we destroy a node, 3 more appear. They're being reinforced from somewhere. We need to find their source, they said. Cut off the head of the snake. Our scouts have been searching, a coalition admiral reported. We found something. There's a massive concentration of Ravager ships at the Galactic core staging area. Millions of them, all orbiting something we can't identify. Soong studied the data. That's their queen, their central intelligence. Everything else is just an extension of it. How do we fight millions of ships? Tae asked. Soong looked around the room. His face was serious, harder than Hana had ever seen it. We don't fight them. Not yet. First, I need to ask Earth for something I hoped we'd never need. What's that? Hana asked. Full mobilization. The main fleet. The room went quiet. Jay spoke up. Admiral, we swore we'd never bring the full military out of the Expanse. That was part of our agreement when we went into isolation. I know, Soong said. But this is exactly the scenario we prepared for. An existential threat to intelligent life. If we don't stop it here, the Ravagers will consume the entire galaxy. This is what we've been waiting 10,000 years for. He sent the message to Earth. The response came 3 days later. The main human fleet was coming. Hannah stood on her bridge when they arrived. She had thought the expeditionary fleet was impressive. She was wrong. 300 warships emerged from jump space. Each one was larger than anything the Coalition had ever built. They carried weapons that made reality itself seem to bend. They moved with perfect precision, like a school of fish that had practiced their dance for centuries. Commander Yoon led the fleet. She was older even than Soong, with white hair and eyes that had seen things Hana couldn't imagine. When her face appeared on the screen, every human in the system stood straighter. This is the human home fleet, Yoon said. We've come to end this war. She shared classified information with the Coalition leaders. Information that made Hana's blood run cold. The Ravagers weren't a natural species. They were created, designed as a weapon during the ancient Silence Wars by an enemy humanity had destroyed completely. Wiped from existence so thoroughly that even their name was lost. We thought we destroyed all their weapons too, Yoon explained. But apparently, we missed these. The Ravagers have been dormant for thousands of years, hidden, waiting. Something woke them up. What wakes up a weapon? Hana asked. A signal. A call to war. Someone somewhere sent out a wake-up command. We don't know who, but we know what they wanted. They wanted the Ravagers to finish what their creators started, to destroy all intelligent life so nothing could challenge them. But their creators are dead, Tae said. Yes, which means someone found their legacy and decided to use it. Yoon's face was grim. It doesn't matter who. What matters is stopping the Ravagers before they fulfill their programming. The combined fleet prepared for the final battle. Hana worked alongside human commanders, learning their methods, their mindset. She understood now why they had isolated themselves. Humans weren't monsters, but they had the capacity for monstrous things when necessary. They had destroyed an entire species once. They were preparing to do it again, and the terrifying thing was, they were good at it. Watching the human fleet practice maneuvers, seeing their weapons charge up, Hana realized something. The myths about humans weren't warnings about what they had done. They were warnings about what they could do again. The combined fleet hung in space like a gathering storm. 300 human warships, 500 coalition vessels, all preparing for the most important battle in galactic history. Hana walked through her ship, checking on her crew. They were scared but determined. They had learned from the humans. They understood now that fear was acceptable, as long as you didn't let it stop you. In the briefing room, Commander Yoon laid out the battle plan. Hana, Tae, and the other coalition commanders sat alongside human officers like Soong, Dae, and Jae. The Ravager Queen Mind is at the center of their formation, Yoon said, pointing at the hologram. Millions of ships surrounded in layers. Our objective is simple. Destroy the Queen. Everything else is secondary. How do we get through millions of ships? A coalition admiral asked. We go through them, Yoon said simply. Wing leader Minho will lead our bomber wings. They'll punch a hole in their formation. The rest of us follow and keep that hole open. Minho stood up. He was young for a wing commander, but his eyes showed the same confident calm all humans seem to have. My bombers will clear the path. We won't fail. The Queen will have defenses we can't predict, Soong added. We'll be using weapons we've kept in reserve. Weapons we hoped we'd never need to use again. What kind of weapons? Tae asked. Eum looked at the coalition leaders. The kind that frighten us. The kind that remind us why we isolated ourselves. But they're necessary. The fleet moved to the Galactic core staging area. The journey took 3 days. When they arrived, every sensor screamed warnings. The Ravagers filled space like a dark cloud. Millions of ships, all networked, all controlled by the massive vessel at the center. The Queen Mine ship was enormous, larger than some moons, pulsing with organic technology that seemed almost alive. All ships, battle positions, Yoon commanded. The fleet spread into formation. Human ships took point. Coalition vessels formed the second wave. Everyone knew their role. Everyone knew some of them wouldn't survive. Hannah gripped her command chair. Beside her, Tae looked calm. Over the past months, he had learned not to underestimate humans. Now he trusted them. Fleet Commander Yoon to all ships. The communication came through. Today we end this threat. Not for glory, not for conquest, but because it's necessary. Because if we don't, everything we love will die. Fight well. Fight smart. And remember, you're not alone. The Ravagers attacked first. Waves of them poured toward the Allied fleet like a tsunami of metal and teeth. The human weapons fired. Hannah watched in horror and awe as reality itself seemed to tear. Some human ships fired weapons that created miniature black holes, sucking in hundreds of Ravagers at once. Others used beams that didn't just destroy ships but unmade them, breaking them down to atoms. What are those weapons? She whispered. Jay, on her bridge, looked grim. Things we invented during our darkest times. Things we swore we'd only use against existential threats. The coalition fleet added their firepower. It wasn't as devastating as human weapons, but it helped. Together, they carved through the Ravager formation. Then Minho's bomber wings launched. Hannah watched them go, small ships diving into the heart of the enemy formation. The Ravagers swarmed them, but the bombers were fast, nimble, and absolutely fearless. Minho's voice came over the comm. Beginning our run. All wings, follow me in. His bombers moved like dancers through deadly space. They dropped weapons that exploded with terrible power, clearing corridors through the Ravager fleet. Some bombers were destroyed, but the others kept going. Path is open, Minho reported. Repeat, path is open. The main fleet surged forward. Human and coalition ships fought side by side, pushing deeper into enemy territory. The Ravagers fought back desperately, throwing everything they had at the invaders. Hana's ship took heavy damage. Hull breaches, system failures, casualties mounting. But they kept going. Behind her, she heard Nari working in medical, saving lives even as the battle raged. Ahead, the Queen Mine ship loomed. Up close, it was even more terrifying. Organic and mechanical merged together, weapons growing from its hull like tumors. All ships focused fire on the Queen, uncommanded. The combined fleet unleashed everything. Missiles, energy beams, kinetic weapons. The Queen's shields glowed bright, holding against the assault. Then Day's voice cut through the chaos. Special Forces teams launching. We're going in. Hana watched as assault shuttles left the human ships, heading straight for the Queen. It was suicide. It was brave. It was very human. Day's team breached the Queen's hull and disappeared inside. For long minutes, there was no communication. The fleet kept firing, kept fighting, kept dying. Finally, Day's voice returned. "We found the core. It's defended by something. Not Ravagers. Something else. Something old. Can you destroy it?" Sung asked, working on it. The battle around the Queen intensified. The Ravagers knew what the humans were attempting. They threw everything at the Allied fleet, trying to break through, trying to save their Queen. Hana's ship was dying. Half her systems were offline. Bodies lay in the corridors. But still, they fought. "Charge is set," they reported. "But we can't get out. The route is blocked." Yoon's voice was steady. "Complete the mission, Captain." There was silence. Then Day spoke, calm and accepting. "Understood. It's been an honor. Tell Earth we didn't fail." Detonating in 10 seconds. Hana wanted to scream, to order them to find another way. But she knew there wasn't one. This was what Quan had taught them. Sometimes, to save millions, you sacrifice hundreds. The explosion was visible across the battlefield. The Queen's ship tore apart from inside, brilliant light erupting from its core. And suddenly, across millions of kilometers of space, the Ravagers stopped. Every single one. They drifted, dead. Their networked intelligence severed. The battle was over. The Alliance had won. But the victory felt hollow to Hana. She thought of Day and her team. Of all the Coalition soldiers who had died. Of the terrible cost of survival. A week later, the Coalition Council offered humanity full membership, leadership positions, control of military forces, recognition as the most powerful species in the galaxy. Admiral Sung politely declined. "We didn't come back to rule," he told the council. "We came back because you called for help. We'll stay as partners, as friends, as allies, but not as rulers. We tried that once, long ago. It didn't end well." In added, "We'll establish embassies, joint defense stations, trade agreements. But humanity will remain mostly in our own space. We'll be here if you need us. We'll answer if you call. But we won't interfere otherwise." On Hana's ship, preparing to return home, she stood with Tay looking at the stars. "Do you think they'll really stay away?" Tay asked. "I think they'll try," Hana said. "They're disciplined enough to do it. What did we learn from all this?" Hana thought about the past months. The battles, the sacrifices, the terrible weapons, and the brave souls. We learned that the myths were real. We learned that humans are dangerous, but they're not evil. And we learned that sometimes the monsters in the old stories are the ones you want on your side. Far away, the human fleet prepared to return to the silent expanse. They would fade back into legend, back into myth. But now the galaxy knew the truth. Humans were real. They were watching. And if the galaxy ever faced another existential threat, they would come again. Not as conquerors. Not as rulers, but as the universe's most terrifying protectors.